Ben, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Top three bands on your workout playlist.
Walkout playlist. I mean, right now I get to have a little bit of persuasive creative control, I guess, in like the song that we have coming out to our show. So I used to have Country Roads from John Denver. That was a good one. Last tour, Johnny, that was my Johnny recommendation. That was Mr. Sandman by, who was it? Like that old jingle, Mr. Sandman, make me a dream. Like the little, it's like an old bebop kind of jam. But for this run, I got to put one of my favorite songs, which is Kiss by a Rose from Seal. Great. Anytime you're going out, kind of song, just a great song. Aside from that, kind of a staple that's been in like my warm up list is Legend from Bob Marley. Just like any song off that album, really. Just a very good, like, trying to just de-stress, kind of calm my heart rate, calm down sort of feeling. And then sort of the opposite of that is pretty much anything by Pantera is usually a good Kickstarter of sorts.
That's been on my playlist continuously the last few weeks now. Pantera and Lamb of God.
Oh yeah, Lamb of God. I mean, I saw them at Sick New World. It was so good. I've listened to a lot of Lamb of God though, so I'm kind of on a bit of a break from them at the moment, just because I've listened to so much of them in the past.
Cool. So, what is your favorite exercise and why?
Well, it's I don't know if you can really boil it down to just one exercise, but one thing I started doing about 3 years back is I started training Jiujitsu. Back like right when everything started to open back up from COVID, but there was still no touring or anything happening, and I got super obsessed with that. And so that's been kind of my primary workout, more or less. And I've actually kind of catered my whole gym routine and everything else, my diet, pretty much everything has kind of catered its way around that now, just because it's a whole different type of strength that you're trying to kind of cultivate with that. You're trying to get a lot of athleticism, a lot of mobility, tons of cardio. And I actually kind of noticed where, like, before I would kind of just, for many, many years, I'd go to the gym just lifting for, definition or size or whatever. I'm not trying to be actually, I don't want to be like gigantic in size. I just was like, everyone wants to have definition and all that good stuff. But I was about maybe like 190 pounds when I started. And I just noticed myself just being exhausted with like these tiny, tiny guys by comparison that are just kicking my ass. I was like, man, okay, it just sort of redefined in my mind, like what strength, meant. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to like find the sweet spot for me is in terms of where I feel like I'm strongest, but I'm also like the most agile. And I can maintain that for like the longest portion of time. And for me, that's actually about 175 pounds. And a lot of that was just, I mean, you sweat so much and everything like that. Like I'm about as lean as I've ever been just from doing that. And then all my exercises around that kind of injury prevention exercises, I guess you'd say, like a lot of lunges, just very slow isometric type stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a complicated answer, I guess, in terms of like a favorite exercise. But I guess, I don't know, jiu-jitsu as a whole, very full body, very cardio heavy. A lot of your own body weight and sometimes other people's body weights, in very interesting positions. A lot of held out positions, like you're constantly like framing against something for a very long time. So I guess it's a ton of isometric, fast twitch type of training if you had to like really boil it down.
True. My 8-year-old daughter does jujitsu and she loves it. Like, she's obsessed with it.
Oh yeah, it's very easy to fall in love with. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not for everybody. It can be very uncomfortable for sure at times, but I don't know. I always like a good puzzle and problem solving, and it's a high stakes version of that.
Yeah. Well, strength and agility, I guess, would also help you as a stage performer.
Absolutely. Playing shows now is actually kind of a breeze. Like even when I'm fully like I can tell it's like okay, I know I'm tired, I'm feeling it, but I actually usually feel like I could probably do this for like a few more hours. Like realistically, it's not definitely not worse than like a 300-pound man sitting on my chest or something like that, which I usually at some point in the day will have to go through when I'm home training because there's a lot of big guys at my gym. So it's a walk in the park compared to that.
Okay, what is your least favorite exercise or physical activity?
Leg day. Everyone needs leg day. Yeah. It's like the number one thing I've tried to be good at. It's just, I hate the recovery. I hate doing it. I feel like I got really long legs and kind of not the best knees. So it kind of just hurts that. And then it's the first thing, as soon as I get any kind of like gain on it, it's like the first thing that atrophies when I stop working out. And then I feel like I've been at the same weight for all leg exercises for years. I'm just stuck there, which is fine. I don't mind maintaining it, but yeah, I don't like it.
Well, you're not the first male musician on here to say that they don't like leg day.
Yeah, no, I mean, trust me, it's not from lack of doing it. I try to do them a lot. I very rarely do a lot of upper body stuff just because I already get so much of that from drumming and from other jujitsu or other things that I don't really do specific training like that, like I do for my legs. I just don't see any results from it.
Yeah,
I get all the pain and no gain.
yeah, it's the same for me for
Yeah,
upper body. Like it's the same weight, and I just never seem to go up. So I understand
yeah,
it.
yeah. One of these days.
So, what does your regular fitness routine look like when you're not touring?
On a good day, I'll wake up, go to the gym pretty early in the morning. I usually like to do, I'll do just like 30 minutes of just like walking at a fast pace on like an incline treadmill, trying to just not break a sweat, but like kind of getting myself to the point where I'm about to start sweating, but I kind of keep it just shy of that. So I don't know, maybe like somewhere in the 140, 160 heart rate range, I'd say. Nothing too crazy. Go home, eat. I pretty much eat very high protein based diet. So eggs, bacon, rice, meat, some kind of version of that like throughout the day. And then dinner will be whatever with, less carbs, still just a bunch of protein supplements and all that. I'll go play drums and practice for maybe 3 to 4 hours. Come home from that, go to jiujitsu, which is about an hour and 40 minutes of training there. And then either after that or sometimes between drumming and jiu-jitsu, I'll try to go to the gym and do weight training for about 30 or 40 minutes. But I usually don't try to do any weight training any longer than that, just because I've already kind of done enough of it. But again, my goal isn't really I'm not really trying to gain much by going to the gym anymore. It's more of just like a little bit of morning cardio and a little bit also to kind of like wake myself up. But just like kind of just keeping things moving, because there's nothing worse than if you kind of like let something sit for too long and you go to use it and you get a big cramp, or it's like that's when you get really, really sore. Especially training jujitsu, like my arms and stuff, like things that actually tend to start hurting more. I'll focus like once it's kind of settled down a little bit. I'll like, okay, I'm going to focus on this next. Like my shoulder's been hurting me. I'm going to work on some shoulder stability strength exercises, and then that'll be fine. And then I'll just move on to the next thing that hurts.
I was going through your profile and I noticed that recently you've gotten really jacked.
Oh, thanks.
What's changed?
Nothing really. I don't know. I quit drinking about 2 years ago. I'm sure that probably helps a lot because I'm not retaining a bunch of water weight and stuff like that and carrying it in my face. Other than that, nothing. I mean, I'm not super disciplined. You can ask any of these guys here. Like I have a crazy sweet tooth. I love sour candies all day long, chocolate stuff, frozen yogurt, sign me up. It's over. I just try not to eat any of that stuff, too terribly late at night. And then I really try to balance it too. Like if I've done a bunch of like the counting calories and stuff like the Insanity, the P90X. I've done all that stuff. And kind of now I feel like I've gotten to a point where I can listen to my body and sort of tell like, okay, I know I've done like a lot, even though I don't feel like I've done a lot. I know I've done more than I think I've done. So I can eat X amount more, or if I want to eat like some trashy thing, I'm going to eat it a little earlier and then, drink a bunch of water and do like, I kind of, I don't know, I can like feel how to offset it, I guess, a little bit better without having to rely on a book of cataloging everything I'm doing. I kind of just feel it out. And it seems to be working, more or less for now. So
No, it is. It definitely is.
Oh, thanks.
So what do you do to stay fit on tour?
The biggest thing, there's a lot of people that do a lot of serious training that would probably agree on. A lot of it is just in like the rest and recovery. That's kind of the hardest part of touring is finding proper rest and recovery, even from shows. Like as soon as you start to kind of fall behind on that, it starts to really fall out of your grasp very fast. Like you'll go to play a show, it's like, man, I still feel tired from 2 days ago. And like yesterday, it kind of got here, but now I have to play it again. And every time you play a show, it kind of just like drags you back a little bit, because even though you get like an adrenaline pump and all that, you get the adrenaline dump afterwards. And now you're like twice as tired, still have to do all the same stuff. Maybe the drive wasn't a great drive. Maybe you had to stop for some reason and you're washing the side of the bus, and that, it's very hard to sleep through sometimes. And so you just never really know kind of what you're in store for. So, the primary focus for me on tour is just making sure I get plenty of rest. And then on top of that, as long as I can do that, just drinking tons of water. I have like some isometric bands that I'll try to use a little bit before the show. I have a yoga mat, do some core exercises. I got some resistance bands. I got some push-up bars. Johnny, our singer, he brought like these pull-up door frame things. Honestly, I don't get to use those a ton though. Like this tour in particular, it's been pretty tough to try to feel well rested enough to do all those things. Because in the past, I'll try to like force myself, like, okay, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's fine. But then inevitably, I end up just getting sick, and then it makes everything worse. I've been doing a lot more cardio actually on this tour, probably than anything. I've done more running. It's been a couple days, but I was trying to do like 3 miles a day. I did that for maybe the first couple weeks, and then the last week I've been a bit down and out, so I've been kind of resting. But I probably am going to try to do something here today. It's pretty nice out, so we'll see.
Cool. So you do a lot. There's jujitsu, running, walking on an incline. What else? There's strength training.
And drumming, which I guess is something.
Yep.
I've been drumming for like 20 years though, so it doesn't really. It feels like I'm just having fun, but I guess it's a
Oh,
workout.
it totally is. Yeah. I saw a video of you where you took your shirt off and then you squeezed all the water out and like you were sweating so much.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we played the show in Munich, and man, oh god, it was like one of the hottest shows I've ever played. And I've played festivals in Phoenix, Arizona. There was like 125 degrees outside and playing like into the sun. And this room was swampier than that. It's kind of, that's why I was laughing. I was like, Chris, like, you take a video of this. Like, I feel like I just jumped out of a pool. This is ridiculous. And I didn't even realize it at the time because the room was so like foggy from sweat and everything that you just felt, I don't know, you didn't notice it until afterwards. Like, holy shit, I am drenched. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
But it's like something like that. Afterwards, I was like, I think I can eat a couple cookies after the show. Everything's about catering to my sweet tooth.
Oh, all right. Have you ever gotten injured on stage?
On stage, no. I've had some dumb injuries though that I've had to deal with on stage. Like I bruised my heel. I like jumped off a garbage can or something back when back in the drinking days, and some of us were just being idiots after a show. And I jumped off some garbage can, not wearing shoes. I landed right on my heel in the middle of this parking lot. And at the time, I just kind of like walked off. I was like, that was a hard landing. Whew, for like the next 5 days, I could like barely walk on that thing, and then having to walk out and try to play shows was not fun. I also broke one of my not my pinky toe, but the one right next to my pinky toe. I broke that thoroughly right before a tour one time, just like accidentally kicking the side of a chair, just at my house. I just like walked by it and kicked it.
Oh,
And just, immediately just like took my breath away.
those
Sort of
hurt.
pain.
They really hurt.
Yeah. I've had that. I've had some, back, shoulder kind of pains just from jiu-jitsu stuff, but I have a couple good friends of mine that I train with that are one's a myofascial release therapist, and the other one's a physical therapist. So between the two of them, kind of help
Fix you.
patch me back up when that becomes a big problem. But nothing too crazy. Johnny probably got the most hurt right before a show. One time, him and I were training. We have some mats that we bring with us, and we were training maybe a little too aggressively. But I was chasing his back, and we were kind of like circling each other in this way, so that it wasn't really anyone's fault or anything. But he like kind of planted his hand on the ground and was turning a certain way, and I guess it was a previous injury that I was unaware of. But he like turned, and his rib popped out and kind of dislocated partially, and he was in a lot of pain. We had to play a couple, 3 or 4 shows in a row there where he was just sitting in a chair. Not good. It was not a fun conversation to have with everyone else. Like, hey guys, so Johnny's hurt, and it's sort of our fault. Other than that, nothing too big.
What kind of physical activity do you think has helped the most with your drumming, like with your stage performance?
Oh, I mean, anything cardio related, and then just a lot of stretching, really. A lot of drummers, I don't know if it translates necessarily to other instruments as well, but there's always, a big adrenaline dump that comes from performing and stuff like that, usually with live. So a lot of people, when you hold a stick, this is a really large example. Let's say this is a drumstick. You're supposed to kind of hold it like here, like a, fledgling bird. It kind of rests in your hand. It moves around a bit. At shows, people tend to grip it like, death grip it, because you're just, you're not thinking about it. You're just smashing through it. And that's a real good way. I used to get these crazy cramps sort of in my arms. It would look like little golf balls popping up on my forearms. It was very painful, and it also made it very, very difficult to play. And a lot of stretching, a lot of drinking water. And then sort of like I mentioned, like that Bob Marley Legend album, I'll put that on, like trying to get myself into a much more like relaxed, like I want to lower my heart rate. I want to go into the show as if I'm just practicing by myself. Like I don't want to be all hyped up and whatever. At least for me, maybe it works differently from someone else. I play a lot better if I start from a place of kind of calmness and work my way into it. But especially physically, cardio wise too, like it's just so easy to go in, overdo it, and then you're trying to like just make it to the end of the set because you burned all your fuel in the first 10 seconds and now it's gone. So it took a long time to learn how to like get that sort of self control. But yeah, I mean, if your cardio's there, it makes everything so much easier.
Cool. Did you also have to work on your core strength and your posture?
I've never, I mean, core strength stuff's all come, especially from training any sort of jujitsu stuff now. Most of that's just from that. I've never really done a ton of isolated exercises like that. I mean, I guess I'll do planks occasionally, but posture, that's actually, yeah, something I still work on a lot, especially because with drumming, there's actually this guy, he's instructor of sorts of mine. I've taken lessons with him on and off for years. This guy, Dave Elich, he's like the drummer's teacher.
Well, when you play for years or decades, that means thousands or even millions of reps on your instrument. And when you do that, everything gets glued together.
He's a professional drummer himself, but he's like really made a career out of helping other professional drummers with just like the ergonomics of playing, and especially like proper posture and stuff like that. So proper ways of holding the sticks, just so drummers can have a long career and not eventually accumulate all these small injuries and things like that not only keep you from playing in general and causing you pain, but like it limits what you can play because your own body mechanics sort of limit what feels get like you just kind of get into these modes of like, okay, well now your playing is limited because you're stuck into this weird little posture every time you go into it. And so for me in particular, it's become a bit of an interesting game because with drumming, you kind of want to stay very proper, back straight, kind of sitting in the seat a particular way, very high up. And with jiu-jitsu, you want the opposite. You want like caved in shoulders. You want to be in here a lot of the time. So I'm trying to merge those two roles. I have a very bad tendency. If you look at old videos, I would tend to look like this. I'm like very hunched over and kind of have that like hunchback of Notre Dame posture a little bit. That's something like even now I actively, still work on.
That makes total sense because even with strength training, rest, recovery, mobility, all of this is so important because at some point you're not going to be able to progress if you're not getting in that mobility work.
Totally. And it's the same thing if something as simple as like a bicep curl or something. Like we've all probably seen it where the friend who has the way too much weight going on, they go to lift something and they do this, they go, every time they try to lift it, you're like, oh, hey man, that's a great back exercise for your arms.
Yeah, you can make any exercise a lower back exercise if you do it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, like you're only limiting yourself. Like you're going to hit a peak much sooner than you would if you were doing the correct form. Like you can go further with it. Like it's the same with, at least as far as I know, to be with drumming and jiu-jitsu as well. Like there's just knowing kind of how to position your body to be most beneficial in that domain,
Love that. So what do you do to not get sick or exhausted on tour?
Oh, I sleep so much. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably go to sleep, like after, if I do some kind of workout here in a bit, I'm just going to go to the bus and sleep. I sleep all the time. It does get a bit weary, because everything's just catered towards the show. The last 2 off days we've had, I think I slept maybe like 16 hours each of those days just from being so tired. But the off days before that, I was doing a lot and yada, yada. That's really just the biggest thing, making sure I eat enough, making sure I drink enough water, and then just tons and tons of sleep.
Yeah. So do you have like certain foods you eat on tour?
Yeah, I don't know if some of them are here, but a lot of bands, when you play shows, you can get these things called like a rider list. So, things you submit in advance that you'd like to have be in your dressing room for when you're playing. Some of it's here in the background. One of the things we usually try to ask for, like those Metrics Big 100 bars. I love those, especially the apple pie ones. They are very, very good. I bring I have a thing on the bus of Optimum Nutrition whey protein, some like the Amazon generic brand green superfood, same with the Optimum Nutrition amino energy, and then just a thing of creatine. And I'll kind of every morning do all of that. And then if I do a workout, I'll do just the protein with the BCAAs. Sometimes creatine, sometimes not. It depends what I'm going to be doing. Do get a lot of that. Anything beyond that, yeah, just like deli meats, just anything that's high protein, I kind of just try to stick to. And then occasionally, if I'm going to do a cheat day, I have to have carbs. Like I'm a monster for carbs. I've noticed that too in training. Like that's why my go-to when I'm at home is just I'll cook rice and then I'll cook up like bison meat or ground beef or something and just do a cup of that and a cup of rice. I eat that like 2 or 3 times a day on top of everything else just because I feel like absolute trash if I don't have carbs.
That's why you're getting so
Hmm.
jacked.
Oh, from carbs?
Oh yeah. Well,
Oh,
the
well,
mix of protein and carbs.
okay. Well, yeah, I just like the way it tastes. It makes me feel good, so I just stick to it. I didn't necessarily, I don't know. I guess maybe, yeah, maybe that's something.
Do you smoke? Have you ever done drugs?
Yep. Used to smoke cigarettes for years. Haven't in a long, long time, but kind of like right out of my high school period. I didn't start really. I'm 35 right now. I didn't really start training or taking care of myself at all, I guess you could say, until I was like 24, 25. I was kind of like naturally in shape. I swam when I was a kid for like 7 years, and I was just always in decent shape from that, but never like in shape. So yeah, had a number of years there. It was pretty unhealthy, and then drank a lot up until about 2 years ago, and then stopped that as well. So I don't miss the cigarettes. Occasionally, every now and then, I'll catch a whiff of one. I'm like, oh yeah, that smells good. But the idea of it just sounds terrible now. I like being able to breathe fully. It's nice.
Yeah. So you don't drink alcohol anymore?
No, no, no. Oh, so I kind of wish sometimes I did. Like a good frozen margarita on a Sunday still sounds good, but not for me.
Well, there's mocktails now.
There is, but I mean, that's our bass player. He quit drinking as well, and he's like, man, if I wanted just a bunch of empty carbs, I'll eat chips or a cookie or something. I was like, yeah, I feel you there.
Have you noticed more rock and metal musicians getting healthier?
Yeah, but I don't necessarily know if that's just because I'm getting older as well, and all the older guys who definitely like some of the guys who've been around a while who kind of lived in like the heyday, I guess you could say, of rock music, where it's a lot crazier. All those guys have more or less found that if you want to have a sustainable career, you kind of have to be healthy. So I kind of started noticing that a good number of years ago, and I thought to myself, it's like, I'm going to have to do that too someday because what I'm doing is definitely not sustainable. So I kind of always anticipated on doing that at some point, and then yeah, I ended up. It's kind of a long story, but I was having a bunch of problems with my hearing in my left ear, and a variety of things, and it just kind of kept. It was like ever changing. But I started noticing a correlation between drinking and that. And it would affect it in kind of like a negative way. So as soon as I stopped drinking, I started noticing like an improvement with all that. And then it just became a very easy decision. I was like, well, I don't want to fuck with my hearing. I'm just going to stop drinking.
Yeah.
And then I also, at that point I had started training jiu-jitsu and everything else. I was like, oh man, everything else is just easier. I wake up feeling great. There's really no loss here except for like, oh, now I just have to learn to be a little more social without drinking, which is fine.
Well, there's a lot of younger musicians as well I've interviewed, and it's definitely moving in that direction.
Yeah, there tends to be a much more health consciousness, like in general, or health conscious awareness, like kind of in the ether almost.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys. We've toured with some bands like Crown the Empire. A lot of those guys will train, and even on this tour, like there's really no big heavy partiers. It seems like everyone will kind of have a good time, but there's no table flipping or gluing things to the ceiling or nothing like that.
No jumping off
Although it'd be
trash
fun.
cans.
No, none of that.
Is there any sport you've always wanted to get good at, but you've never really been able to master?
Oh, probably a bunch. My parents had me do a bunch of sports when I was a kid. They never let me play football. Probably, I guess correct is too small to do that. I wanted to be good at baseball, terrible at it. I guess the only sport I really still do is golf. I'll do that with my dad and stuff on occasion. And when you hit a good shot in golf, oh, it's the best feeling. But it comes about in between 8 other terrible shots that really make you just hate being there, hate everything about everything. It's like, it's the most frustrating feeling. But, it's good practice and patience and what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just becoming letting things go. But it's fun. I like watching UFC. It's probably the sport I watch the most, but I mean, I have no ambitions whatsoever about being a fighter. I actually hate the idea of fighting, but I love jiu-jitsu because it feels like a puzzle more than it does like fighting.
There's a lot of technique there.
Oh, yeah. It definitely can be scrappy, but even amongst that, like you can quickly turn that into a technical game if you can get in the right position. It's just, and it depends too who you're training with. Like if someone's training who's just trying to be a monster all the time and going for gold, so to speak, I just won't train with them that much because I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of here to learn and work on this. I'm not here to be a world champion. So, but hey, if you are, good for you.
So if you could choose one person to train with, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, I mean, Bruce Lee would be fun. Freddie, he, like our Johnny, our singer, I think he was referring to him, especially with a lot of like isometric type strength training that I guess he was very into. And yeah, I mean, he was jacked. But aside from that, like obviously very like athletically able. That'd be kind of fun.
So we're done with the questions. Anything else you want to add?
That's it for me, really.
All right, that was fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you.